welcome. So this is about what is the perfect bagel. I'm Chrissy Traore. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CMB Kitchen. We're in the Catskills, and we make sourdough bread and croissants. And here I have with me...
My name is Joseph Savelli. I'm the director of culinary and malt products. We're out of Dayton, Ohio. We have offices in northern New Jersey as well. We produce malt extracts, what makes a bagel a New York bagel.
All right, and my name is Jeff Yankellow, so I am with the King Arthur Baking Company. I lead the team that sells flour to manufacturers, bakeries, resort chefs, anyone using flour in 50-pound bags or bigger. And my background, though, is cooking and baking, hands-on, so I spent a lot of time in the back of the house dealing with a lot of fun stuff and headaches, which is why I'm not there anymore. But I still enjoy it quite a bit, and I love being around bakers and bakeries. And I actually live in San Diego, so out here from the West Coast. Yeah.
Welcome. So sorry it's early for you.
Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. I'm good. I adjusted.
All right. Well, you have a baking background, so probably
exactly.
used to getting up early. So before we get started, we just want to take a quick poll of the room. How many people are looking to get into the bagel business? Raise your hand. Hi. I'll hold it up. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. That's why you're here. And how many are already operating on a small scale? Raise your hand. Awesome. And how many are on a large scale or in mass production? All right. Cool. So this just helps us kind of answer some of these questions. So, we always say bagels are more than bread with a hole. I run a sourdough bakery, and we don't make bagels. I love bagels, but it's not something that we specialize in because it is so special. So let's start with the malt. What is malt, and what makes it essential to a great bagel?
Thanks. So malt extract, different from malt syrup, is produced from sprouted malt and the mash, so it gives you that toasted, slightly sweet flavor notes into your bagel dough or into the boil, as well as changing your color, texture, aroma, and flavor. So I think New York bagels, Montreal bagels especially, have been using malt in their dough and their boil since centuries now. So really that authentic flavor, kind of the food memory that comes from a bagel, you may not know it or consumers may not know it, really comes from the malt extract that we put in. So in malt, we produce a different line of liquid, dry malt extracts, light, golden, giving you different levels of malt flavor in your dough. Our golden is your typical malt extract. So adding it to the dough, it's got sugars that yeast loves to eat, so improves your fermentation, your proof, so changing that nice chew texture to your New York style bagels, or any great bagel that you would want to make. When you put it in, it also adds those sugars, so you're going to get really nice browning, Maillard reaction in your bagels. And when you boil, those sugars actually adhere to that outer of your bagel. So during baking, you're getting that nice kind of blistering, a little more of that crunch to the chew of your bagel, and really nice overall golden brown color that added to your bagel. And then the notes that come, it's a subtle sweetness. It's not, you could use honeys or other sweeteners, but you're really getting that subtle, complex sweetness when you use malt that everybody's kind of familiar with. Toasted notes while adding sweetness as well.
This might be a silly question, but can you, for those that might not know, can you explain what is malt?
Yeah, of course. So malt is malted barley grain. So you take your malted barley grain and malt it, quote unquote, so it sprouts, and then if you would take the same product to make our malt extracts as you would to make beer. So they do it through a fermentation process, same process up until the mash of beer. And that is what we then extract our flavors from, our extracts. I say extract, and I make sure to say extract because there's syrups out there as well, which is different between, our product is a pure malt extract from that malted barley sprouted grains, versus syrups are typically a blend with corn syrups, other items. So to get that real pure, ours is 100% sprouted malt barley that we then bring through a fermentation process and up to the mash part of the beer process to make our extracts.
It's fair to say sprouting and malting are the same thing, more or less, right?
Yeah, the malting is the process of sprouting barley.
So when the sprouting happens, enzymes get active, they start breaking down the sugars, then the sugars from the starch in the grain, and then they capture those sugars extract those sugars and then make malt, right?
Yeah, most of it. And that's with those enzymes, I think we have so I don't want to get to the question, but there's different types of malt, diastatic, non-diastatic. That's a big differentiation. So to your point with the enzymes, when you take a diastatic malt that has all those healthy enzymes that then help this break down to more sugars in your yeast, really pump up your doughs, strengthen your proof, quicker proofs, higher quality proof, or our non-diastatic, which is for flavor, color, texture, but it doesn't have all those enzymes, so it's not going to affect really your proofing or the dough.
Awesome. And that leads us right into our next question. So diastatic versus non-diastatic syrup. You mentioned having additional ingredients in the malt. Can you tell us just more about how that works? And Jeff, feel free to get in here and
Sure.
add.
Yeah, of course. So at our plant, we can bring our malts down to different flavors, or we call them different colors. We have a full line of pure extracts, anything from light, golden, amber, dark, and even black. Our black malt's really used for caramel color replacement, so a healthier version of that, but it tastes very bitter, very kind of burnt. So your colors along that spectrum, light is going to be your sweetest with those nice toasted notes, and as you get further along the lines, extra toast, kind of extra malty until you get to our darks. For bagels, it's really our light, golden, and amber where you want to stick them within. Those are all 100% pure extracts, and we actually also have a vacuum belt dryer, so we sell our products in liquid. Since we use a vacuum belt dryer, we dry it to a powder. Different than, say, a spray dryer where you really only get one color out. We actually have our light, golden, amber also in dried formats. And before I really get into the versions of that, it would be diastatic, non-diastatic. Non-diastatic is really for what traditional bagels use because it's not affecting. If you use too much diastatic, say in a bagel dough, it's going to blow up your dough, which is not what you want. So it's typically using a 0.5 to a 1% of your flour weight. So you can add to get better rise, quicker rise, but you really want to kind of make sure you differentiate when ordering our product to a non-diastatic so you're not affecting your dough. You're just getting the flavor, color, those sugars for the extra Maillard reaction. And we do those both in liquid and dry. And then the difference between our dry and our liquid would be shelf life. So liquid, it is a live fermenting product. It has about a 6-month shelf life before it can start to continue to ferment. Our dry has about a year shelf life. So a little easier of process. Malt extract liquid is also very sticky. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried to use it. It's delicious, but it is, heating helps, but it will stick to anything and everything. So our 50-pound bags of dry kind of help. We do much larger from there as well, but again, a little longer shelf life. It is, so for your dough, dry is great. A little harder to get into your boil, so I usually recommend using our liquid in that boil. Again, if that's for your crust, color on the outside, but kind of all products to meet any of your needs, your storage abilities, capabilities, and what you're looking for.
But I have a question. So, okay, so I'm a baker, right? And I am typically let's call it artisan, craft baking, long fermentation. And we're a flour company that puts malted barley in just about every flour we sell. We always use diastatic in the flour, and the purpose. Does everyone understand the diastatic, non-diastatic difference? Why? So for diastatic malt, you enzyme activity for long fermentation. You're introducing enzymes. Those enzymes will break down the complex starches into simple sugars that then can be consumed by the yeast. So I guess my question is, so non-diastatic, if you have a recipe or a formula with a high percentage of non-diastatic malt and you put diastatic malt, you're going to have so much, it's going to be gummy, it's going to break down that starch, and the texture is going to be terrible. But so in bagels, what is the history of diastatic? What is the history of malt? Forget about diastatic. In bagels, purely flavor, right? Because sugar, eventually the sugar is going to be eaten up by the yeast, and it's whereas the purpose of diastatic malt is to slowly provide this source of food. The purpose of non-diastatic is flavor, right?
Yeah, flavor, color, just from
color,
the sugars, Maillard reaction,
right,
and items
sugars.
like that.
And then in the boil, it's
So those sugars actually within there adhere to that outer layer, and that's
the secondary
again, color,
coloring
flavor,
and flavor. Yeah. Okay.
And the blistering, you get that kind of New York crunch
When I first started
soften.
baking, I didn't know better, and I used syrup, and it's such a mess. The syrup, it's like tar.
Yeah.
Where as bakers, we prefer, malted barley. You can malt wheat too. You can malt pretty much anything, but grain-wise, yeah. We prefer. I prefer powder. It's so much easier to use.
Yeah, and you could take just that
Yeah.
0.5 to 1%, depending on your formula, out of your dry flour, blend, and make your dough.
Yeah.
Versus
Easy.
having the
Cleaner,
deal with
cleaner.
a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us a little more about the malt in the flour, Jeff? That kind of leads us into the next question, and what flour is ideal for creating bagels,
Yeah.
and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking of too, real quick, when we were talking about diastatic or non-diastatic, there's only three, but very soon I learned from these guys, there's only, let's say, 2 manufacturers of malt in the U.S. So if you're buying malt from anyone, any brand, any label other than Malt Products or their competitor, I won't say it since they're in the room, it was still made by them or their competitor. And the way to know if you're trying to swap out is something called the Littner value, right? Which is the scale of how active the enzymes are. But for diastatic malt, so I guess for non-diastatic, there is none, right? It just is what it is. Color.
Yeah, mainly color,
Yeah,
flavor.
color,
I think
flavor.
if you do on a really small levels, there's difference
I
in the
think it
linners and the
tests like
colors,
this.
but yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not going to affect in the
Got
same
it.
ways.
Okay. Yeah, so flour is that's a big one. So when I saw that question, we could go a lot of places with this. And I think where most people start when it comes to bagels is most people think high gluten, the stronger the better. And that's because like a typical New York bagel, we think chew. And in the U.S., the biggest designator of strength associated with flour is protein. So it's typically thought of the higher protein, the stronger the flour is going to be, which is the dough is going to be, we should say, which means the bagel is going to have more chew. Of course, it has to do with volume also, more strength, more volume, typically in the oven. So if you're just thinking like traditional, old school New York style bagels, most people are going to that, the stronger the better, high protein, high gluten flour. But the truth is, and when we had a little call beforehand, these days it's nearly impossible. So when someone asks me what's the best flour for anything, it's really hard to say there's a perfect flour for anything, because these days you can make anything you want, right? Like in that room out there, not every person is trying to be a New York bagel made with high protein flour, and some people are blending flours, and there's nothing wrong with that. But typically, if someone said, what should I use for bagels? Okay, you want to make, what kind of bagel do you want to make? If you want a nice chewy bagel, New York style bagel, typically high gluten is what you're going to do, which is 14% protein. All of our flours have diastatic malt in them, and I'm sure it's playing a different role than the non-diastatic, where you're adding non-diastatic flavor. The reason we put it in there is because you want some enzyme activity. There's already a little bit of enzyme activity in the wheat itself, but it's very low. But you need some enzyme activity to start breaking down starch to provide sugar, which can then be consumed by the yeast, because at the end of the day, what are we talking about? Whether it's bagels, pizza dough, pita bread, it's all fermentation, right? Eating sugar, yeast eating sugar, producing gas, alcohol, aromas, esters, all kinds of complex things that add to flavor. So if you
And
think
our bodies can't digest unfermented starches in large quantities.
This could be like a whole nother conversation here, because
you need that fermentation.
I mean, for me, I'll just say this as a politician, I guess. I mean, I like to eat a bagel that's well fermented because I think it's easier to digest. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel doughy. So, and as a baker, I approach bagel making just like I would any bread. But flour, like if you want more tender and maybe more crispy, like there's a bagel shop out there. I won't go by name. One of our customers, and they said, and their bagel is pretty chewy. And they use high protein flour, but also it's not just the flour that makes it chewy, it's sourdough. Mm-hmm. Sourdough, long fermentation, acidity tightens the protein, strengthens the protein, chewier crust, right? So there's other ways to get to chew without just the flour. And also you can take a high protein flour, hydrate it up to 70-75%, and then it's less chewy, but maybe you get more volume, which is what you want out of it. So I always tell people, I get asked all the time. I'm every single day. I'm not even kidding. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Every single day. I can show you my phone from this weekend. I have 2 phones. I got panettone questions on one phone. I got bagel questions on the other, right? It's nonstop. And they're like, Jeff, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, why? Yes. Just try it. I mean, It's not like you're gonna, go test drive a Ferrari and crash it. Like, just try it, see what happens. So one shop out here is an example for flour. After the BagelFest last year, they said, do you think we should try it? And they won an award. Then they said, do you think we should try a different flour? And I was like, I don't know if you want to change anything. You just won an award for your bagels. And then they were asking me, like, what do you think? What would happen if we put... So we have 3 flours. Sir Galahad is our... I call it a low-protein bread flour. It's a true all-purpose. It's a very tight spec, 11.7% protein. It can be used for baguettes as well as, like, cakes and cookies, quick breads. And then we have Special Patent, which is our 12.7. And then we have... Sir Lancelot, that's like our bagel flour. Most of our bagel users are using that high protein flour. But they say, why would we use one over the other? Well, spring wheat, for example, is stronger protein wheat. But so Special and that Sir Lancelot are always going to be from spring wheat. Galahad is going to be primarily winter wheat, the lower protein with a little spring wheat added into it for strength. But it's not just about the protein. Spring wheat, winter wheat produce different results. They have different tolerance for fermentation, different tolerance for proofing, crispiness, how long they stay crispy out of the oven. So that's why they're like, well, I want to use a little lower protein. Why should I blend in Galahad to my Lancelot instead of just using Special? Well, the reason may be that spring wheat, that winter wheat that's in the Galahad may bring different characteristics to the final results. Even though at the end of the day, after you're averaging, you may end up with the same average protein as Special, because Special is going to be 100% spring wheat, And you have different characteristics. And the other thing, because one question, I don't know if this is the next question, I think it was the same question.
Just keep going.
About like regional flour, right? So like regional flour, she asked us about. So King Arthur, we mill all over the country. Flour's got to move one way or the other. Wheat as the grain or flour, right? And every mill unless they are not in the business of running a profitable business, I guess, we want to mill as close to the end user as possible. We don't want to ship wheat from California down to Florida and then ship that flour back to California. It makes no sense. So whether or not you're trying to do local, regional, or not, there's a good chance that your flour is being milled very close to you, and also the grain is going to be as close to you as they can find. And the reason that's important for me to say is because I've had calls before from regions that are like in the Northwest, and they say, oh, we want to use local high protein 14% wheat to make our bagels. I'm like, well, that region doesn't grow that wheat. So you're either going to have to adapt, which you probably can, to use the wheat in your region, or the wheat's going to have to come in from somewhere else.
There's no olive oil in New York, you can't.
Yeah, so if you live in North Dakota, you can be making bagels with local wheat all day long. Let me tell you that. If you live in Colorado, probably winter wheat, like Denver. Maybe that Galahad from us is 100% within 200 miles of the mill, grown, And then the other thing is I think it's fair to address it because nowadays very popular. There's a lot of small regional mills, a lot of popular grains, a lot of varietals. People, I say, man, you go on Instagram, these guys show a picture of their wheat fields. People go nuts. I'm like, but our fields look the same. Like, let's show a picture. Like, and then you put a name on top of the grain. Oh my God, it's like the best thing that ever happened. And a lot of these names are, a lot of wheat is bred for high yield, disease resistance, easy to harvest, and a lot of people. And it's single varietal is fun and exciting, and I have no issues with it whatsoever. A lot of grains have a lot of different flavor in their whole grain form. But sometimes blends are a better way to go, and I think the way like King Arthur and mills like us fit in that equation is provide, like, let's say 75, 80% of a solid, consistent performer, take some headaches out of the bakery, unless you're the one bakery in the world that can, it's real easy to find great help and keep them employed all the time, and they just walk in the door nonstop. So in other words, take one of that variable out of your equation, and then maybe 25% local grain, which tends to be a little more variable. And why would local be more variable? There's just less to blend. So at our level, what we're trying to do is have a consistent product so we can blend wheat, and if one region has an off year, we can blend from other years. So when you're using more local regional stuff, if it's a horrible rainy season in your region that year, the wheat is probably going to reflect that. But there's a happy medium for both.
Also scaling, as you think about scaling, if you are
of course,
looking to scale, you want a reputable sources of your malt, of your flour, of all the products that you're using, because these are going to, you don't want to chase your suppliers or have deficiencies there. So I love that. But I love
Yeah.
the adding the flavor back in. So let's talk a little about buying malt. So we're going to switch gears real quick. When people are buying malt, what should they ask for? So what's the questions that these producers should be asking in purchasing malt?
Great. So great question. I think as we touched on before, the number one is, do you need non-diastatic or diastatic, or are you selling diastatic or non-diastatic? So always ask that question, because if you're getting, like you mentioned, you put in 1% of diastatic versus non-diastatic, you're going to have a much different product, and it's not going to be a fun time. You should also be asking if it's extract or syrup. So if you want a pure malt product, the pure flavor, and not like the added extra sweetness from, say, a corn syrup blend or high fructose blend, you should always be asking, is it extract, is it syrup? In order to call it extract, it's got to be 100% pure malt extract. I think those are the biggest one. And then dry or liquid. Ask questions of the shelf life on the product and know your needs of your storage needs, the temperatures your storage is at, what's the humidity levels, to know which is better for you as well.
Any tips on buying flour, Jeff?
I mean,
By
just
King
buy
Arthur?
King Arthur. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy, right? I mean,
We love King Arthur.
you know what? I will give one tip. How about this? Just because I like to talk. You know.
You're on a panel.
Yeah, exactly. I'll fill the panel. For us, like I'm only one person. We have a small team on food service. There's 5 of us, but we like to connect with the customers, and that's not just a pitch. Like I've been baking my whole life, and perhaps my biggest thought, if you want to call it that, is I'll help you whether you're buying our flour or not. Okay, I just said it. Like I will help everyone. As a baker, how could I not, right? But the thing is, if you can connect with your suppliers and not just work through your distributors, which isn't so easy when you're small. How do you find us? Events like this, right? Then we want to have that connection, and we want to support you, and we want to be able, if you ask your supplier a question and they don't actually know what you're talking about, and you're like, I don't know, I'm going to call Jeff and ask him if this is right. But that's what we want. So that's why we're here. That's why we support events like this, and we want to have that connection with our end user. You know?
Awesome. So we're going to go to the lightning round.
Oh, yeah. Ready.
I'm going to ask these folks some questions, and they're going to answer really quickly, and then we'll open up to your questions, because I think they have such great information, and getting your questions answered by these experts is key. All right. Bagel sandwich, open face or stacked?
Stacked.
Open-faced all day, every day. I'm California. I live in California. Come on. Plus, you know the benefit of open-face? Let me tell you.
It's not defense. It's just lightning round. Okay.
All the
What's-
capers, all the extra capers, they fall off. You know?
Yeah, I know.
There's just always too many capers.
That's why you got to stack them.
Well, stack you
what-
could travel with as well.
Stay in
So
there, yeah.
as a Colorado guy, I ate those stacked on top of mountains, so can't really bring an open face.
Got West Coast, East Coast. I love it. What's the one thing people always get wrong about bagels?
Oh, it's an easy one. They think they can make a good bagel without King Arthur flour. No. But here's the honest question. Here's the truth. It doesn't have to be what. I don't care. There's some bagel makers out there who will say it's not a New York bagel. Who cares, right? Is there a line out the door? Courage Bagel in LA. Do you know Courage Bagel? There's always a line out the door because you can't go inside. There's nowhere to go inside. So that's one trick to looking really busy. The bagel is you can argue till you're blue in the. I'll argue with you till I'm blue in the face. I know it's not a New York bagel. It's so good. It's fermented. It's light. The toppings are amazing. So make what you want to make. Of course, if you want to stay in business, someone has to like it and buy it, but they will. If you're a small bakery in a neighborhood with good stuff, people will come and they'll buy your stuff. And do what you want to do. It doesn't have to be what someone else thinks a bagel should be, right?
I think I'd go with, especially moving from New York and then coming back. Most people think of New York bagels because of the water. It's because of the malt. So.
Ooh, on that malt tip. I always say you can't unknow how delicious something is, and that's it. Once you try it and it's delicious, who cares if it's a New York bagel? It's a delicious bagel. There's so many cool bagels here to try today. Bagel, you secretly judge people for ordering. Oh.
This will kind of take the next one. I tried to think of another one. Salt bagel. It's not, all day. Sorry.
For me, I'm not going to judge you because like I'd be a hypocrite. I'd be a hypocrite if you if I judge you for what you order. But I'll judge the bagel. Like I don't understand the purpose of a flagel. Like it just serves. You know what a Flago is? Like
Flat
it's a
bagel.
flattened bagel. It's like I just don't get it. Like it just doesn't. I think the idea is like it's all crust, but it just doesn't work. It makes no sense at all. Like I don't. Get
It's
it.
like an extra flat bialy. Like, it's just
Bialy with a hole in it.
Yeah, it's anyway.
It's like a marketing campaign that never worked.
It's like a problem.
Yeah.
So secretly judging the Flago and the salt
Flago,
bagel.
yeah,
So the next question, I already know, Joe. Salt bagel, yay or nay?
Hey, there's salt in the bagel.
Oh,
I know. I heard it. I heard salt bagel is the new poppy, but it's a little over the top for me.
I love salt
Yeah.
bagels. They're my
I don't mind
favorite.
salt, but it's a little much for me. The bagel. Yeah.
You gotta like scrape some off, and then you put it on your plate, and then you like dip it in as you're going, so it's like
Got it,
more
got it.
even. That
makes sense because
I'm a salt girl. Underrated bagel topping combo.
So I've been eating this since like varsity hockey. Cream cheese, peanut butter, jelly, and the everything bagel topping in there on a plain bagel. So, good energy, great hiking bagel too. So.
I'm going less is more, and this is where the salt comes in for me because as a baker, I'm always often reminded this when I eat it. Like just salted butter on like a warm bagel, it's like amazing, right? And the bagel itself, I'm just gonna shout out this bagel from when I was a kid. My grandmother used to buy this thing, and I don't see it anywhere. Like the bagel twists, like the black and white twists. You know those things? I almost see them nowhere. But otherwise, last week I ate a bagel flavor I never had before. A nice alternative to like blueberry raisin. It's the sweet bagel. It's cardamom and dried cherry, which I thought was really, really nice. Yeah, this new wave bagel in Lucadia, which is northern Encinitas, northern San Diego.
It's very interesting. I'm a bagel and butter and cream cheese girl.
On the same
Bagel.
Ah,
I think
stacked.
it wets the cream cheese a little. You know, it just
Interesting, yeah.
on my salt bagel. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Okay, we're gonna open the floor to your questions. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll point to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Jeff for the comment that you made about, like how open-minded, like if it's a good bagel, it's a good bagel. And like we set up our bagel company like nearly 5 years ago in Plymouth in the UK, and we when everyone else, like in England, there's an obsession with New York food, and there's this sort of New York style, and we didn't. And the reason we didn't is because it was really disingenuous to us to call ourselves New York style when none of us are from New York.
Yeah,
None of
yeah.
our products are from New York. Like we have no links with it other than selling a bagel. And that's just really tenuous. And instead, we drew our bagel culture and recipe from our childhood and from things that stood out from us that we could confidently recall and share.
Yeah, I love that idea.
That like even though like we've had the best time here. Honestly, it's been absolutely amazing. But even so, we're not going back to the UK to now. Right, let's scrap it all. Let's do New York style.
Yeah.
Instead, we're like, no, this is good.
Yeah.
And hearing experts like you, Karen, yesterday, just said the same thing. We're like, that just fortifies you even more to move forward with.
Yeah, you know something I actually said, I moderated a panel last year, and I said it on the panel, and people in the room like Suzanne and Tony, these guys work, Gwen, they all work with me. I've said this so many times. I used to work for a chef who's pretty well-known, high-level chef, and one night he said a quote from Jerry Garcia, like I'll sound like a broken record to some people, and it's basically, the paraphrase is, yeah, it's nice to be the best, right? Like someone out here wants to be the best bagel, so you'd love to be called the best bagel. But the truth is, what he said is we're not trying to be the best, we're trying to be the only one that does what we do, right? Now think about how special that is, right? Because most of the time, if you're really trying to be that means you have confidence, you know your product is good, you believe in it, and you're not there just to win awards. You're there to do something really special, right? So what's the name of your shop?
We're called the Houton Bagel Company.
Houton Bagel, okay.
My brother George up there.
Oh, got it. Okay, nice. Nice, okay. Congratulations. Yeah, good. Thanks for coming, too. You know, there may, I don't know if I can say this, there may be a West Coast Bagel Fest next year, so we got to come back. You got to fly a little further for that one. But.
Any other questions in the room or anything that we didn't answer for you? And what's the perfect bagel?
Well, this might tie in. You mentioned mountain time zone a couple of times, and I'm interested in elevation over 10,000 feet. What are the considerations that need to be taken when making bagels?
Got me on the spot.
I can help a little bit, too.
My experience when baking, cooking, I haven't done too much bagel baking when I was at high levels, but in general baking, it was always higher degrees in the oven and a longer bake time for me. But I'm gonna go to you if you have some
I think, well, first of all,
More
and this is a plug, but really not, it's meant to be very helpful. Like, our website is just full of information, kingarthurbaking.com. We have a high altitude baking guide on that website. And I think chemical leaveners are a lot trickier when it comes to high altitude, making adjustments. For yeasted product, I believe, because of the atmospheric change in atmospheric pressure, things like that, proofing is going to be a little quicker, and things dry out a lot faster. So the bagel, being a small product as it is going to dry out quicker already. So just be aware of that. Maybe bake more frequent. Well, first of all, watch the proofing. The proofing may be a little bit quicker, for one thing. So you may want to adjust as far as yeast quantity, watch your fermentation time, soil time, temperature, keep all those things in check. But also maybe bake more frequently or maybe bake a little less, just so that knowing that a bagel that may last 4 hours in New York may not last that long on the shelf in high altitude because it's so much drier.
I will add to that, like when you boil with malt, it kind of adds a guard on the outside with that crust, with the Maillard, and that does help lock in moisture as well. That gives you that chew. So again, this is just, it's a chewier, moisture bagel at this level. It may give you a little bit of extra time, if, to your point on the dryness.
Yes.
Yes. I can.
No.
Dough conditioner. Let's call it a catch-all phrase for a blend of additives, right? Is that fair to say? Where do we start?
So,
Okay.
for anyone who doesn't know, a dough conditioner is going to be like an added enzyme or protein, which is going to create certain very desirable one-to-one results in your dough. So it's kind of like if you think of baking soda, as you add it and you add an acid, you have a one-to-one ratio of sodium bicarbonate, and then, CO2 and carbon dioxide and other gases are expelled. And dough conditioners can provide some of the similar effects.
Yeah, all kinds of effects, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, bread improver,
Yes.
exactly.
Yep.
So basically, you have they're there for strength. They're there for machinability, for extensibility. There's some that are in there to make the dough strong in the beginning of the process and weak later in the process. For tolerance is a big one. So it's not a dough conditioner. It's actually a chemical additive, potassium bromate. It's pretty relevant in the baking industry. A lot of New York bagels are made with potassium bromate. A very strong additive, gives a lot of proofing tolerance, a lot of oven tolerance, a lot of volume in the oven. It makes the dough a lot stronger in layman's terms, potassium bromate. And our flour is completely untreated. We don't use potassium bromate at all. And it's very hard to match the power of potassium bromate. And the reason, there are clean alternatives to it. And the reason people stick with potassium bromate is it's very strong and cheaper than the clean label alternatives. But dough conditioners can be used in good ways. I don't know. Bad is relative, right? So but their insurance, there's bakeries, bagel shops in New York, they're using bromated flour, which is already bulletproof flour in my mind, and dough conditioner.
They make it very consistent.
Yeah, very consistent and
It's
overnight in the
consistent.
fridge. If it overproofs a little bit or the dough's undermixed a little bit, it's an insurance. It's like State Farm. They're there to pick up, in case you're undermix the dough or the shaping isn't so good that day or it overproofs, it's there to still come out okay. But it does also do other things, like the bagel's going to have more volume. So like a 2-ounce bagel with a really strong dough conditioner is going to be bigger than a 2-ounce bagel without. And this is where it gets a little controversial. I would say that most things that a dough conditioner can achieve can be achieved through good, sound baking practices and fermentation. You could also do good, sound baking practices and fermentation and put very minimal amounts of very clean additives like ascorbic acid, vitamin C, enzyme. A lot of things are enzyme-based these days. Just for you're making 10,000 bagels and one little thing goes wrong, that can kind of save your butt, But it's a personal choice, honestly. So, but that's what it's it's a blend of additives typically when you use the word improver or conditioner. Yeah.
So, Jeff, from my understanding, would that also delay or stop some other natural enzymatic activity that might not have the strength to compete with some of the...
I'm not aware of it stopping, but it would probably power
overextend
in a sense.
Yeah,
Meaning they
yeah,
become
yeah.
more of the front
The front
line.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if they're changing the characteristics of the dough, it's fair to say,
Yeah.
at all stages of the process, dough conditioners in general. But some react sooner, some react later, and a lot of it's by design on whether you're working by hand or by machine. The one thing I say about baking, what makes it so hard, as you know, there's so much judgment in so many steps, right?
Yeah.
Is it mixed enough? Is it wet enough? Is it proofed enough? Is it baked enough, right? So the only way to get that right, every single step right, if you don't get, it's nearly impossible. Like the first step, people say, oh, I got machines. You need less workers with machines, in my opinion, but you need more skilled workers on the machines, and you got to send the same dough to the machine every single day, because the machines, don't necessarily adjust like your hands can. When you're doing things by hand, it's so much easier. But the dough conditioners is like
So
an
much
all-in-one. Yeah, helper. Yeah, helper. Right, exactly. Easier. Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
So Joe mentioned earlier that you sort of want 0.5 to 1% baker's percent for the diastatic enzyme active malt in the red flour that King Flour
You got there.
is making. What concentration do you have so we can sort of account for that?
For us?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a good question. It gets asked quite a bit. Like, in other words, what percent of malt do we put in? We can't really say a percent because the way it works is there's a test called the falling number test. So the falling number test is a test of enzyme activity. And if you think about like a little test tube of a beaker, they put a little slurry solution of flour and water in there, and it's heated in a bath like a warmer. And then they start, like a ski pole device in a test tube. Imagine that, like a ski pole, stirring it up for 60 seconds. So your falling number will never be less than 60 seconds. And then they measure how long it takes for they set the ski pole at the top of that solution, and they measure how many seconds it takes for it to fall. Okay? So most wheat coming out of the field is going to be like 350, 400, even higher seconds on a falling number test. So the reason we put malt in the flour is quote unquote correct it so that falling number is always in a good place for good fermentation, which is usually about 250 seconds. So our range is 220 to 280, I believe it is. So within that range. So basically, they're going to take wheat out of the field. If the wheat is higher or lower, they may not put as much or more in. It's done in a lab. So basically, and then depending on your process, I typically would never add more than 0.5% of diastatic malt to a formula. But generally, like if you're doing a lot of pre-fermentation, the longer you're fermenting your flour and the more of it you're fermenting, that means more of your sugars are going to be used up and more of that enzyme activity is going to be used up, so to speak. So then you may decide why. So the better question is, why would you even need to add more? Would be like it's not browning. Like if you know your bagel should brown, or a baguette is a great example, within 22 minutes, right? And you're like, it's just not browning. Maybe a little malt is your solution. Now, there could be other things too. Maybe your dough is being mixed too warm or it's over-fermented, but the idea is like, do I have enough residual sugar to achieve what I want to achieve? In most cases, like when I make baguettes or any kind of bread with like high yeasted pre-ferments where I'm using up a lot of the sugars in the flour already, I'll add a little bit of malt on top of what we already have in the flour. But when you do your calculations on flour, like, oh, how much should I add? We're targeting a flour that's really well set up already for long fermentation with the malt we put in, but it's not a set percent. It's going to be based on the starting falling number and where our target is, where we want to get, so that it's always the same when it hits you. If that makes sense. And if you're using unmalted flour, then you're a little safer with adding a little more. And malt isn't like, there's amylase enzymes too, and malt isn't so sensitive that if you overdose a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world. Where if you overdose some enzymes and things like that, or like deactivated yeast, stuff like that, that's really strong stuff, then you could have some problems. Malted barley, it's not that sensitive of, as long as you're pretty accurate measuring grams and percentage. Like if you have, 1% would usually be my max, but you probably don't need it.
Jeff, we've just got a few minutes left, so any other questions?
So it is diastolic malt in the King Arthur flour.
Correct. Yep. And in the retail we have enzymes. Actually, we use some enzymes. Yeah.
Since we've started machining the dough, our bagels have become soft, like on the inside. The crust is good. I started adding diastolic malt. The crust is excellent, but the inside has become too
Only since you started machining.
Yes.
And you used to divide by hand, and now you divide by machine?
Right. It's a manual divider.
Oh, so it's a manual divider, so that's pretty gentle. Not like volumetric piston driven, nothing like that.
Conditioner with amylase, lipids, and
Since you started machining. Well, so I don't know if I have the answer right now, but the way I go about things like this is what's different, right? So we got to look at what's different and talk about that, and then see which one of those things that's different is causing the problem. So we can talk, you know.
It also sounds like you're changing a lot of factors all at once. And maybe, okay.
One question I once got asked, someone said to me, "Hey Jeff, when Mike makes the sourdough, it comes out perfect. When George makes it, not good. What's wrong? They're not doing the same thing." As simple as that. I mean, it's sometimes the answers are real easy, like
Yeah.
you know.
The factors.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anyone else?
bromine is quite prevalent.
No, in the East Coast, in New York, yes. You can't use it in California anymore. You could use it and say your bagels cause cancer, but no, or had a cancer-causing agent in it. But so no one was using it anyway. But now it's banned. But I think big industry lobby groups, it's going to be very hard to get rid of it. But I heard New York is working on it, right? Is that right? Trying to. Yeah. But it's banned in many countries outside of the U.S. You know that? I bet it's banned in the UK. Potassium bromate, he said, is it prevalent? But in the Northeast, in New York especially, it's still, we almost know for sure if someone says, hey, we switched to your flour for our pizza and it's not coming out the same, we almost know 9 or 10 times it's because they switched from a brominated flour and they just thought it was going to be a one-for-one swap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Any other questions? Yes.
Well, one more time? Is there a flour? The only flour I buy is King Arthur flour.
I feel like you have something on your shirt there, sir, that might be.
Are there any other flours? I didn't think there were, to be honest with you. Yeah, but no, we if you haven't been to our website, like King Arthur is a baking community, I say. It's an experience. It's not just flour. Like our website is for the consumer, but it's full of so much unbelievable information. Yeah. No, it's funny because we started with importing flour from the UK. And a few years ago, I mean, this is 30-something years ago. That's where our roots are, actually.
We've reached our time. Joe, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to get your malt products or more information about malt? What's the best way?
So I would go to maltproducts.com, reach out through email there, and we can direct you to a local distributor if needed, but as you mentioned, there's really only 2 malt guys, so you may already be buying our product if you buy malt. But yeah, we have a booth out there as well, so you could come get a card, and we could help you out with whatever your needs are.
And Jeff, KingArthurBaking.com?
KingArthurBaking.com, yep, that's the place. Full resource where you can get a hold of the professional side of the business. We have a booth, we have a table out front, spin the wheel, win a prize.
Woohoo!
All right. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Happy eating
Yeah,
and
thanks
happy
for coming.
bagels.
Yeah.
Thank you.